I don't know, good day, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. Uh, so welcome. I'm gonna start, by the way, and this session will be recorded. We'll upload it later. So if any part of what we cover today you kind of miss, or maybe you want to go back, check it out again, it will be recorded. The last time we didn't do that because it was probably we weren't planning on doing any recording, but moving forward, all of these Shadow Me's will be recorded. And this is our first Shadow Me, which is kind of a series. We are a project with multiple series of sessions. The plan is to kind of go over, let's say, an investigation together. If we can finish it within 1 hour or less, then that's good. If not, then we'll probably like look at divide it into multiple pieces or multiple parts and look at part one, let's say in day one, and then the other part in another day. But the goal behind this Shadow Me is to kind of shadow an investigator doing something. Now, that doesn't mean, excuse me, the way we are going to be showing things is the only way to do things and it's the best way to do it. We'll probably share our best experience or our best practices, but there's really so many other ways that you can do your investigations, and we are open to hear and learn how you do yours and learn from you. So it's just one way of doing things, but that doesn't mean that's the only way. So we decided to start our first session with volume shadow copies, which is a really very important topic when it comes to Windows forensics. And let's start quickly. So my name is Ali Hadi. I'm the co-founder of Cyber5W. I'm an associate professor at Champlain College. I'm also the research director and the director of investigations at the Leahy Center for Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity. I hold a PhD, a master, and a bachelor, all in computer-related fields. I worked in the industry. I still work in the industry on smaller projects for more than 15 years by now. Then transitioned to academia and research. I've contributed to the DFIR community with multiple like data sets over the years, educational content. I presented probably at every DF conference that I can remember. I've conducted many workshops, etc. My interests are DFIR definitely and adversary simulation. I still like to write code and simulate a lot of those like different adversary techniques. And you can find me here on X or Twitter previously. Now on this Shadow Me, we have a special guest with us, Mariam.
Hello everyone. My name is Mariam Khader. I work as assistant professor at Champlain College teaching digital forensics. I'm also a research fellow at the Leahy Center for Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity. I have a PhD in computer science and master in IT criminology. And I have presented also in different digital forensic and cybersecurity conferences like TICNO, DFRWS, NCCC, and HTCIA. My interests include digital forensic and data mining. And this is my Twitter handle.
Thank you, Mariam. Do you want to continue?
So what we are going to cover in Shadow Me 1 is what is volume shadow copy. So if you haven't used volume shadow copy, we are going to cover what is volume shadow copy. Then we have a case that was generated by Cyber5W, and then we will start the demo, and we will leave 10 minutes for a question at the end of the session. So just a quick question, why Cyber5W? Why to choose Cyber5W?
So Cyber5W, I worked previously at different organizations and creating content for them. And I was always designing the content the way my employer wanted. So we kind of decided, me and other professionals in digital forensics, to start now designing the content in the way that we see is best to kind of help others learn. And as everyone knows, sharing is caring. That's another important thing that we believe in. And another important thing also is our training, or all of the content that we kind of try to cover. We don't really want to focus on the tool. So similar to what Brett Shavers is here trying to say in his quote, or his very famous quote, it's really at the end the investigator that does the forensics. It's not the tool. The tool is just a tool, but at the end it's really you who are going to be doing the investigation. So all of the training is really not tailored or kind of centered around a tool. It's more about like learning the investigation itself. One thing that we all feel proud of, we wanted to kind of put it in here, is 60% or more, 60 plus by the way, of our returning our customers are returning customers. And what that means is those who come take a training with us, they really come back for more. But hopefully, and we hopefully we get more than 60%. So what's volume shadow copies? Let's talk about now the what this whole session is about. So volume shadow copies, it's a feature that was introduced back in Windows 7, and this feature enables Windows to kind of, every time a new data needs to be written to the volume, so every time a new data needs to be written to the volume, the system, this volume shadow copy system, will take kind of a backup of the data and then write the new data on the volume. So what that means, it's kind of what is currently referred to as COW, or copy on write. So before the write operation happens, we take a copy and then we write the new data on the volume. So the system will do that. Now, as you can see over here, this was enabled by the system. It allows us to kind of have, I don't want to call them, by the way, full backups, because they are not full backups. They are what we kind of refer to as a differential backup, because I still need the volume in order to retrieve the rest of the data, but I can still use it to maybe kind of go back in time and see what happened. So system restore points, probably this might be something you are aware of. So system restore points depends on volume shadow copy. So whenever, let's say, you install a new service pack, or you install do some major update to your system, the system itself will automatically go ahead and take like a shadow copy of the volume. So that way, once you do the installation of the of the service pack or whatever, once that installation is done, if something happens during the installation, or if the installation leads to like an unstable system, then you can use the system restore points to roll back to a previous state. And that's what volume shadow copy allowed this feature to be able to be done. Now, this is where volume shadow copies are located, by the way. Today's session is really not to dive into like all of the specifics about volume shadow copy, but it's mostly, we do have a full course about that, but we are today going to show how we can use it to do investigation. So it's really not to dive on every single piece on volume shadow copy. There is a course online if you want, but if you want to do this workshop, I'll be talking about that in a little bit. But we will explain how to use volume shadow copy to your advantage, etc. It's just that volume shadow copy is not a session that I'm going to cover in 5 minutes. That's what I wanted to say. Now let's go to the demo time. So if I want to show you. So if you go to our courses page on labs, we'll put the link in the chat. If you go there and then scroll down, you can see this is our ShadowMe, the one we are doing today. So if you go there, now I'm logged in. So let me show another, probably one if you are not logged in. So when you go there and you're not logged in, you can see it's asking you to pay $20. Now that $20, by the way, is if you want a VM online to practice. But if you don't, by the way, all you need to do, you can say 0. And so that's why it's pay what you can, and then hit the enroll button. you will be enrolled in the course. You'll get access to all of the content, the same investigation, so you can use all of that yourself. It's just that you won't get a VM. Okay, so just to make sure you understand this one more time, by default, I'm refreshing the page. That's the default if you want a VM to practice. But if you don't, you just want to maybe download the evidence, maybe look at the tool, look at the case, also look at the solutions, by the way. If you just want to do that, that's totally fine. Just make sure you switch this to 0 and then enroll in the course. Okay, so I've already done that. So let's go ahead now and resume once you access. So this is here, by the way, at the beginning, just to kind of explain to you the platform on like how to start your VM. And then if you want to extend your VM, let's say you purchased with $20 some credit hours. Okay, how do I extend those if I need more time to work on the VM? This is explaining these to you, how to shut down the VM. We highly recommend, by the way, once you're done, you shut down the VM. Otherwise, if you don't, then your credits, I think they will still run for the end of the hour. So you'll probably lose 1 hour of credit. So I don't want you to do that. So probably whenever you're done, power off the VM, and then when you want to come back, just come back later. Again, this is only if you want to use a VM online. Otherwise, you don't need any of this. Now the tools, these are the tools we are going to be using. Okay, even the tools that we are going to be using today in today's session. Okay, the evidence files, if you go here, you can download the evidence file from here, and then again use it on your system. Maybe use different tools. It's really up to you. If we go to the case brief, this is the brief. We'll come back to this in a little bit. I just want to show all of this before we go on. And then the solutions, if you go to the solutions, you'll need to type, like, for example, here, find out what was the name of the application. You need to type out what is the name of the application and then hit the submit button. This, hopefully, it is configured in a way to, even if like you type in, let's say, an uppercase, lowercase character, it should still give you an answer. So I hope it's going to be, we won't get into some problems with this, but I think it's really good. And it should help you with that. Okay, so this is the platform. If you need to use if you need to at least just use it for double checking your answers, you can do that. If not, download the evidence, use it on your own system. That's totally fine and up to you. Now, the case we want to work on today is this small case, which is you are required to investigate the system of an employee that has violated the acceptable use policy by installing some tools that could be used to circumvent a company's list of acceptable websites. So let's say we have an organization, they have a list of acceptable websites that you're allowed to, let's say, navigate to. Some organizations might have that. And then this user or this employee has kind of install some tools here and then to circumvent that. So install the tool to circumvent that. Now, another thing that was kind of the company was suspecting this employee is doing is some confidential information. So whatever this company is doing, some confidential info. So any intellectual property related to this company or whatever is now being probably like transferred or being shared outside, so it's being exfiltrated or whatever. We have no idea how that is happening or what is going on, and we don't know. And it seems that this employee is meeting with someone and handing them over some information. So how are we going to find that, and how are we going to be doing any of this investigation? Now, we kind of divided them also into some smaller tasks. So task number 1 is find out what was the name of the application. So we need to find what is the name of the application. The second task is take advantage of volume shadow copies to locate the application itself and the installer too. So it's kind of tied to the first one. And then 3, provide proof of the installer and the application were both used on the system. So we also need to it's not enough to kind of just say, oh yeah, the application was found on the employee system. We also want to prove that the application was actually being used on the employee system. So we need to prove that. And then finally, find and decrypt any secret files on the system that might help to reveal the location of the employer's meeting with an outsider. So it seems probably we have some encrypted files, and we need to find out the locations by decrypting those files. Now, with the advantage of volume shadow copies, what we could do is we could first look at the applications and see what is currently being installed. So we could probably like check the prefetch files and then see what's being installed. And then it seems from the description of the case that probably what the employee did is delete that application. So probably we don't have that. That's one. Two, when the case is talking about also the encryption, the files being encrypted. Now a file before it got encrypted, it probably was in an unencrypted form. So can we find that file before it got encrypted, or was it encrypted and then kind of like, let's say, securely wiped or deleted? We need to find out. But if it wasn't, then can I use volume shadow copies to kind of retrieve that file? That's what we will be doing in this case today. So let's go ahead, and Mariam will kind of remind us of where do we need to which question do we need to kind of go to and check, etc. We still have enough time, and I think we have enough time to go over the different tools available and at the same time explain our thought process. So the evidence is this file over here. You'll need to download it. If you're using a system similar to ours, then the most important tools you'll need is going to be like Arsenal Image Mounter, Eric Zimmerman tools, and then we'll see the other tools as well, like VSC tools, etc. So let's go ahead and like mount the case itself. So as you can see here, I'm using a free copy. If I'll show you what will happen if you, or at least I'll mention it. If you do have a professional copy of Arsenal Image Mounter, which is probably, by the way, the best the best tool for mounting evidence out there for so many reasons. We'll cover many of those in other videos, but for now, let's just focus on our case. So let's go ahead and mount the evidence, or you could use that button over there. Now, what I want to do, I want to be able to kind of access the volume shadow copy. So I'm going to use the write temporary. This, by the way, write temporary is not really going to write to the evidence itself. So don't worry about like the integrity of the evidence. That's not going to be touched. And we are going to specify alternate difference location. And I'm also going to delete that after I unmount the volume. Now what this is going to do is going to create a file. I'm going to probably store it on my desktop. That's usually what I would do. And then any modifications that happen to the evidence, it's really not happening on the evidence itself. It's happening within that cached file that's now going to be stored on my desktop. Okay. And hit OK. And it's asking me, where do you want to store that diff file? As you can see, it's a diff file. And we can save it on the desktop. It's really up to you where you want to save it. Doesn't matter. So now that our evidence has been mounted, one of the things with the professional license of this is we can go to advanced and we can kind of mount those volume shadow copies directly through Arsenal Image Mounter. But with the free version, we can't do that. But this is still a great tool, by the way, because one of the things that Arsenal Image Mounter does, and I don't know of any other tool that does that, is it really replicates or mimics a true drive on your system. So when we are mounting the image here, it's kind of mimicking a true drive on your system, which means it's now going to expose all of the capabilities on that drive and the volume to my system, and then I can use the tools to kind of work on the system. So that's part one. Now we have the evidence stored. As you can see, it has been mounted on the F drive letter. So if we kind of go there, we can see it's now mounted over here. One of the things I do like to do is make sure my everything is not hidden. So I don't want things to be hidden from me as an investigator, because you never know if there's a hidden file or something that's interesting to you, or it's hidden from plain sight. So we want to make sure that everything is clear. So part one, we now mounted the evidence. We could probably go quickly navigate through. These are the users that we have. Look at the what files do we have available. If we go over here, we can see probably what are the files available. We can see private, but we can see we have a document here, but it's encrypted, so I have no idea what this is or what it might be. If we go over here, we can see we have a browser, we have these tools available, and that's it. And probably let's check the desktop. So if we go to the desktop, we can see that these are the applications that we have on the system. Now, just by looking at this, I don't see anything really out of like acceptable use policy, or like something to be used for circumventing their policy. But again, we don't know. This is kind of now just what's available on the system. We need to do our investigation. That's one. Two, for example, let's say, and we are going to use the other tools, so don't worry about that. If we go to Windows, for example, and again, we're kind of just doing a quick check of what's available here. We can see these are the prefetch files. Prefetch files are created whenever an application gets executed or started on a system. So whenever you start an application, a prefetch file will be created. We'll cover that in future like webinars as well, or videos. So we can kind of look here and take a look on what's going on. Do I see if there's anything weird over here or not? Now, definitely, by the way, you will be spending some time. It's not like me scrolling up and down and saying, oh, there's nothing there. Definitely, it's going to be more time. But for the sake of the case and our time, I am going to be speeding things up and like going directly to what I want to do. But normally, if this is a real case, and it is a real case, but I mean, if it's a case that I just received, then I'm going to spend some time on checking things out. It's not going to be, oh, I'm going to click this and I'm going to click that, and so on and so forth. So let's go back. Now, since we think we have volume shadow copies, let's go ahead and see, is there any volume shadow copies on this system? So we can do VSS admin and then list shadows. Okay, so we can do that. And we
the font is small.
The font is small. Okay, let me increase the font size. Thank you, Mariam. So if we do this, I think this is better, right? Can you see it over? Okay, great. Thank you. So if we do this, we can see on the F volume, and actually, by the way, if you want, what you can do is you can also do for equal F. So this way we will only list the volume shadow copies which are available on the F the volume. So it seems we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 volume shadow copies. Okay, so there are so many different ways, by the way, to mount them. Now, we won't be covering every single one of them. Again, there is a course for that, but at least let's cover 1 or 2 of them on how to mount our volume shadow copies. Now, one way to do it, we can use Eric Zimmerman's tools. Eric, big shout out to him. Most of the tools I use probably on most of the cases I work on are his tools. Probably I don't prefer any other tool other than these, unless like it's a tool that he doesn't have, but he has really most of the tools that you'll probably need. So let's go there and list the, oh, did I change? Oh yeah, okay. So I just need to change my volume. So these are all of the tools that Eric has, okay, which we can use. And the tool that I can use here for mounting the volume shadows, okay, is gonna be the VSC mount tool, which is this one over here. So let's do that. And by the way, even if you don't know how to use the tool, one of the good things is, let me clear the screen first. So one of the good things about Eric's tools is he writes a lot of documentation. So it's not that, how do I use this tool? It's like you don't know. It's very easy. As you can see here, he gave an example of how to use it. You can even, by the way, just copy and paste it. And I'm going to show you. So I'm going to do that. Our volume that has the shadows is the F. So that's why I chose the F. And where do I want to map these? So where do I want to map them? I'm just going to really use what he did. So root, and then I'm going to do the debug in case we want to debug this. Now, as you can see here, it automatically created this directory because it didn't exist, and then started to mount, or started to kind of connect these volume shadow copies with directories under this directory. Let's go ahead and go and see that. So if we let's open the C and the VSS root, so we can see each one of them. These are probably their IDs. So each volume shadow copy has an ID or GID. These are probably that, and you can see that over here. So this is the volume shadow copy number 1, or the first one. This is the second, then the third, and as you can see, we can navigate them and look into the files. So this is the first one. We can kind of look in that, and probably, let's say, if we go to users, we go to the user themselves, look at the desktop. I don't see anything also suspicious in this one. Okay, if we go to documents, and nothing there. If we go to like downloads, we also don't see anything there. So probably, and by the way, we are not going to do one by one like this. I'll show you in a little bit how I'm going to do it a little bit differently, but kind of to just give you the idea that you might, after this, go navigate them manually and just take a look what's going on. Okay, here we have something different. We do have the Tor browser, but let's do something else. Instead of kind of going into one single directory at a time and looking into that. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is, since we want to look at the, let me clear this. And let me create a directory on my, not this one. Let me create a directory here. I'm going to call it results. Okay, and then we'll use this to store all our results in there. So first thing, what I'm going to do is, since we, let me do one thing probably here before I move on. So let's do for loop, or I want to show you, before I do the for loop, let me show you one more thing. Sorry about that. Let's use another tool before I go there. So VSC toolset, it's another great tool, by the way, for volume shadow copies and other things. I'll show the other things in another video, but not today. But for now, let's focus on volume shadow copies. This kind of has within it incorporated Shadow Explorer. So Shadow Explorer, which is this tool over here, by the way, is kind of incorporated in that tool itself, the VSC toolset. Okay, so here, if you kind of click on the F volume, we can see these are the shadow copies, and we can kind of navigate them, similar to what I was doing, but with Windows Explorer, or sorry, with the File Explorer. Excuse me. So similar to this, what we can do here is select the volume, which is our F volume, and then we can see all of these are the volume shadow copies available. And then I can go here and say, maybe select all of them, or maybe I'm interested in only 2 of them. I can select those. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say link selected. So now these are selected. If I, for example, select one of them and say browse selected VSC, it's really going to pull the Shadow Explorer for me, or probably it's something similar to Shadow Explorer. And now you can navigate this similar to what we were doing with Shadow Explorer. Okay, so it's really up to you how you mount these volume shadow copies. What this does, by the way, is if we, as you can see here, and this, by the way, is the output of the volume shadow copy, and it's telling you where these have been mounted to. So if I go to, for example, our C drive now, we can see we have this directory over there called tilde linked VSC, and inside we have VSC VSC2, VSC3, VSC4, etc. These were the numbers of those volume shadow copies. And again, now you can kind of navigate them through the file explorer, but again, that's really up to you. Okay, let's now go ahead and do my kind of for loop, which I wanted to do from the beginning. But I'm going to use, by the way, these shorter paths. Probably I'm a little bit of a lazy person, so let me use these, and whatever way I can find to use shorter ways to do things, I'll do that. So let me do this, and I want to, for example, look into the Windows prefetch files. So I want to check the prefetch files. If you just do, for example, now, and by the way, all of this is now recorded, so even if you want to again do it later, you will be able to do that. So it's really just typing a small loop, and then I want to print out what we find in here. So as you can see here, what I did, it's going through all of those files within that directory. I'm targeting a specific directory, the prefetch files. Why am I doing that? Because probably I want to check if a tool has been used or not, and then compare it with another shadow copy. So let's do this. So this is part one. I'm going to redirect this to my results. I called it results. And I'm going to say this is VSC2 prefetch, okay, .txt file. So let's do that. So this is going to go again through that directory and list all of the content and save it now into that text file. So if I go here to my data results, and now if I open this notepad or whatever, I can see that I have all of my entries or all of the files which are in that volume shadow copy. So that's one. Let's get another one and go from there. So the second one, let's do, we had 5 and 6. So let's probably do, we had 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So let's do probably number 4. Or you can do all of them, by the way, but let's do number 4. And I'm going to go back here and change this to 4 as well. So now we are looking at the one, the directory in 4, and checking that out, and also creating another file for it. So if I go back here, we are creating another file. And then finally, let's do number 5 probably, or number 6. Yeah, let's do 5 or 6. I don't know. You should probably do all of them, but for the sake of the time, let's just do a couple of them. Because you get the point now. Now this, by the way, same thing applies if I want to do, let's say, not the prefetch files, but if I wanted to do, let's say, not the prefetch directory. So file number 6, I wanted to do like users, and then IE user, the user I'm targeting. Okay, I want to see what files does the user have in one volume shadow compared to another one, and then just call this user. Let's call it user data, and this is for VSC6.txt. Okay, so this is gonna go do all of that. As you can see, depending on how many files is there, it's going to take some time, but again, you get the point. And one final thing, excuse me, we'll leave it running and come back to it. So because I don't want to kind of waste all the time on this only, we need to do other things. So let's continue, wait for this quickly to finish, and then I just want to run one more command, and then we'll go do something else. It's nearly done, and as you can see here, this is creating another file. We could, while this is running, by the way, look at volume shadow copy, the number 2, the prefetch files over here, and the prefetch files over here, and kind of compare them. But we're not going to compare them this way. That's not the best way to do it. So we can use a tool called WinMerge. So let's do WinMerge, and there's another tool. I'll use that other tool in another session, okay, because I forgot the name from the top of my head, unfortunately. And let's go ahead and open the first file that we want to compare with. So if I go to data results, and let's say look at number 2, and I'm going to compare it with number 6, for example, and I'm going to say compare, and let's open this. Now you can see the difference between kind of each like directory, because kind of this is telling you what's the difference. We can, by the way, also use directories, like we don't need to probably like pull all of this and then compare them. You can target the tool to compare between the directories. That's also possible. It's really up to you, but I wanted to show another way of doing this. Now the ones in red are kind of the things that are found here but not found in the other on another location, being highlighted over here. We can see over here is ending over, this is the last thing available here, and then we can see over here we have so many more entries, and we can see that in this case we have these, which is our Tor and Tor browser installer. So and again, for the sake of the doing the case in a fast way, I'm going through this faster. Otherwise you are going to spend some time looking at this, not going to go, oh, here it is. It's not really like that. But again, by comparing the output in this one, I don't see it. There's a Tor in here, but I do see Tor being used here, and Tor is a like a nowadays they have a, it's not just a tool to kind of anonymize your network traffic, but it's also now they have a browser which could be used for anonymous browsing and navigating over the internet. And if anyone is like worried about their privacy, whatever, they sometimes people use that instead of like a VPN or whatever. So we can see that Tor is being used. Okay, so that's probably our thing, and this is found in our volume shadow copy number 6. Now what we can do, since we are in Eric's directory of tools, if you run just PECMD by itself, again, Eric has a lot of documentation on how to do things. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go and target one single file, which is the one, the Tor browser thing. So if I go here, we saw it was in number 6. So if we go there, Windows, just kind of to, again, I'm a lazy person, and then prefetch. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the Tor. Let's see, it's not able to kind of pull the Tor for me. Yeah, it's now good. So if I do that, and now if I just hit enter, system exception, we have a problem with this. Invalid signature should be, okay, let's see. Same thing. I did an update, by the way, today, so probably that wasn't the best thing I should have done. Let me see if we have a quicker way of looking at this. So if I go to, and by the way, this is just to check if the prefetch file is working or not. Let me see if I have another tool. We don't have that. Prefetch viewer not available. We can download another tool, by the way, quickly, or maybe let me quickly do this. Eric Zimmerman tools. As you can see, Eric is very famous. Let me download the PECMD again, probably, and see if my update, I did an update which probably was not the best thing to do, so sorry about that, but let's see if I can quickly. Okay, so let me just CMD over here. We have admin actually. So PCMD, is it working? Okay, so let's do this again. -F, and then I have the directory, which is window, the linked VSC Windows prefetch files. If you have any questions, by the way, please put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them. Sometimes those questions could lead to another webinar, so we'll do that. It's still giving me an exception. Probably what I could do is at least for now. Let me see if the problem is with the way these are mounted, by the way. It might be, but that might be the case. So let me do this. I'm gonna copy them quickly over here just to check, because it might be the way these are mounted. I'm gonna now do results and then prefetch. Okay, and then Tor. No, it's still we have a problem. I think then the problem is with my upgrade, by the way. And yeah, yeah, I'm gonna different prefetch file. Could be corrupted. Let's do then another one.
We have suggestion also to use Microsoft prefetch.
Yeah, that's what I was about to download. Tor Brow installer is giving me. Let me see something else. And maybe CMD was used. Okay, so then the file itself is corrupted. So by the way, if that's the case, it's good that we see more brains are better than one alone. So what probably you can do is we do have multiple volume shadow copies, and I do think we saw the Tor browser and this one as well. Yep. So let's go ahead and use probably this. Okay, so if I go up and Windows, let's use number 4 probably. So I'm gonna do the same thing, but this time the one in number 4, maybe that one is corrupted. So prefetch, then Tor. Yep, here it is. Okay, great. So we can see now. Let me also increase the size, otherwise Mariam's gonna be upset about the font. So let me do this, okay, I think now you can see that. So we can see that the Tor application has actually been executed. Okay, it was either Windows 10 or Windows 11, and that's just based, by the way, because of the file format for prefetch files are the same kind of for both Windows 10 and Windows 11, and we can see when it was last run. So has this application being used? The answer is yes. How many times has it been used? It has been used one time in this case. Okay, and we can see the location of where the directory was, and we can see like the executable itself. This is the executable there. Let's move on to the next question, which was the installer. I think we also can see the installer here now, right? The installer, Tor, the other one, or Tor browser install. Has this being used? The answer is, which one did we use? Prefetch. It seems also corrupted, so probably we can check another. Let's see if we have this in.
I have a question. If I see a prefetch file, isn't that a proof it was executed, even if I wasn't able to analyze it?
I will say that's tricky, and I'll answer that. Just let me just check this. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna answer that. I'll tell you why it's tricky. I prefer, by the way, to look at other things and not depend on one of them. And I'll tell you in a little bit why. So we did 2, 4, 5, and 6. All of them were corrupted. Let's do 3 then. Yeah, it seems this is corrupted. No problem, or at least it's not working. So the thing is, by the way, why I didn't want to say yes. It is, it does give me a good indication that this was probably used, but I'll give you an idea where it might, where I will see a prefetch file, but the application wasn't used. Imagine if you start an application and then the application, when you double click on it, it crashes. So it doesn't really work. It really just crashes. Like an error happens and it crashes. Will a prefetch file be created? The answer is yes. But did the application really work? The answer is no, it didn't work. So I do prefer to not look at one single thing and say, okay, yeah, the application started. I would prefer to look at something else instead of just kind of concluding, oh, I have a prefetch file, then the application started. I hope that answers your question. So we can see the Tor browser is being used here, or like our friend here asked that question. We can kind of assume maybe it was used, but we could probably need to look at other things. But I don't want to do that now because I want to show one more thing that we can do from the volume shadow copies and take advantage of it. So the thing that I want to show you now is look at we had those encrypted files, and we kind of want to kind of bring them back because I want to see what is the content of the file because it was encrypted. So probably what I'm going to do now is if we go again, come on. If we went to the user, I think we saw we had some encrypted data here, documents and private. So look at this. This is case one. I want to show two cases in this case, or at least today, show you two things. So we can see the file, by the way, here. This is in an unencrypted format, so I can see the content, by the way. We could probably open it and see it. We'll do that in a little bit. But before I do that, I want to go back to and show one other thing. So if I go to number 6, and I go to users, I go to IE user, and then documents, and then private, we can see the file here is what is encrypted. But I also see that the user has his secret key, or like the private key for his GPG private key. So what we could do is let's copy these. Let's copy them to our results directory. And then what we can do now is CMD. I hope this is clear, by the way. Is the font good on your end, Miriam? Okay, good. So what we could do is use GPG, okay, minus import. Okay, and import that key, so IE user key. We can import it. We are now imported that. And now what I could do is GPG. I can say minus output, and then I'm going to say readme, but with no encryption, and then minus decrypt, and then use the encrypted file, and it's going to ask me for a passphrase, but we don't know the passphrase, so we are going to assume there is no passphrase, and we are able to get the file back. So we are able to decrypt, by the way, the file, and as you can see here, this is where, if we change the font, this is the answer, by the way, to the question as where is the meeting location, and also how to decrypt the files. Now we were able to decrypt the files in two ways. One, we took advantage of the keys available on the system of the user's system, so we used them, imported them, and decrypted the file. But also, if you remember over here, I didn't open the content, the file I mean. Where is it? I left it in one. Yeah. The file this is in another volume shadow copy, and the file was already in an unencrypted format. So the file was already in an unencrypted format, so I kind of took advantage of that. So it's really up to you, or sometimes depending on the case you're working with. If the keys are there, you can probably import them and use them. If the keys are not there, then if the file, the original file was deleted and I only have the encrypted one, I'll try to search for the unencrypted version of this file. Now, definitely, we can now look at other things. Like, did we now answer all of the questions?
Almost, yeah.
So, for the case, so okay, for the case, this kind of answers all of the questions, and I think we are at the point where we can take other questions from you guys who are attending. So is there any questions that you want me to answer?
One of the things I want us to talk about is, as we talked about the briefage file. So the briefage file doesn't indicate that it was executed or how long it was executed. So is there any other artifact for this?
Yeah, we could look then probably at user assist. So if that's in the Windows registry, we can probably dive into that deeper in another time, but at least let's kind of look at it quickly now. So we can use Registry Explorer, which is another great tool by Eric Zimmerman. And then we can go, hopefully the tool will work. And by the way, I don't think the problem is with Eric's tools. The problem is with my system. I did an update before the webinar, so I shouldn't have done that. So let's load a Hive, and we want to load the one we saw had the files was the number 4, right? Number 4 had them. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the volume shadow copy number 4. Okay, let's see if we can do this and then go to user. Sometimes, by the way, the file explorer doesn't allow you to do the navigations, but that's fine. We know where those files are. So nt user .dat, that's the file we want to open. It's telling me I can't do that. Okay, no problem. What I could do is this. Go to our Shadow Explorer, and I think, not this one, sorry. We can even do this one, but I don't remember the name. So this is number 4. Yep, let me browse number 4. Let me go to users, go to IE user, and then extract this file and save it onto my results. Okay, so the file has been copied there, and now I'll use the tool to load this. And now if we go to the bookmarks, these get, by the way, populated based on what content is available. I can go to user assist and then expand user assist. Okay, and actually, by the way, Eric now created a plugin so that you can see it has already went to the exact GUID. So this is really the GUID where like the where those are being pulled from. But as you can see, by just clicking on user assist, Eric's tool can automatically pull that for you and give you the results, and we can see all of this information kind of quickly. So if we go there now and we search for example, Tor, which is the thing we were looking for, we can see that the Tor browser was used, this one. So the run count was 1. We can see that over there. So has this application, and it's telling me when this application started. Now we can correlate this with probably the results we got from other things on the system, like the prefetch file. If we copy it out and probably like investigate that, this kind of now gives me more solid. It makes my answer more solid, and like to say that this application has been used on this system. I hope that answers that question. Any other questions now?
We have different questions. One of them is that, like, assuming the hash of the value for the encrypted and decrypted files are not the same, of course.
Yeah, when the file is encrypted, then because the content is now changed to a different format, it will be. If so, how do we prove? So I think this is a continuous to the question.
Yes.
Is how do we prove the old file is the encrypted file? How do we prove that the old file, like the one that
Decrypted
is the decrypted one?
Like in Variant Shadow Copy, we were able to see the decrypted form of the file.
Yeah.
So how do we prove that this is the encrypted file?
Like in our case, it's probably because they were both on the same path, and let's say they had the same name. Good question, by the way. I need to think about that. Yeah, I'll need to think about that. Who asked that question? Jason? Yeah, that's a good question, by the way. I need to think about that. By the way, at the end, I don't know everything. I know a lot, but not everything. What else do we have?
Yeah, we have this question, but I wasn't, when I answered, I didn't read it correctly. So is it clicking the application the same as running it via command line, and are they both counted in prefetch? So they are both counted in prefetch, but it's like double click the same as run from command line.
Running the application?
Like if you run it by double click on the application,
Yeah.
or if you run it through CMD,
Yeah.
they like it's gonna be in prefetch, yes.
Yeah, depending on the type of application, yes.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that this was the answer of the question.
Yep. What else do we have? You decrypt the file, it would be the same as the original. Compare the original. Yeah, but that's if you were able to decrypt it. That's why I didn't want to answer it that way. If I was able to decrypt it, by the way, then definitely I can compare them. But if I was not able to decrypt the file, then I can't. The question that Jason asked, I can't assume they are. I can't prove that they are both, or at least until now. I need to think about this. I can't say that these are probably the same. Unless, by the way, another thing now that is coming to my mind is probably checking the file system related content. So if let's say we go to the file system level and look at the, let's say, the MFT entry for the file for the first one, the MFT file, but those will be different because it's a new file. It's not the same. What was the other one? We can re-encrypt the file and then compare them. It should match. Depending if the encryption is gonna give me the exact same thing, probably. But if like with encryption, most of the times the some seeds are gonna be like randomized, so probably they won't give me the same thing. This is not hashing. Hashing would do that, but I don't think with encryption. And if there's any seed, like any randomness involved, then they shouldn't give me the same thing. I can't do that. Anything else?
I think it was to mention that the volume shadow copy is a target for a lot of attacks, like ransomware attacks.
Yeah, volume shadow copies usually when a ransomware hits a system, is probably one of those like features and data that ransomware target immediately. So they will try to delete those volume shadow copies just so that you cannot recover your system or bring it back to a working state or whatever state it was before.
Okay, there was a question about is it enabled by default or not, the volume shadow copy?
So on your systems, by the way, it is enabled, but it is not tracking user files. It's tracking, by the way, system files that, or let's say anything that needs anything related to the system and that is required to kind of be used for recovering the system is being tracked, but it's not really tracking unless you kind of go ahead and activate it for certain files. And there are registry entries, by the way. All of this is explained also in the course that we have. Not the one I showed you. There's a course on Cyber 5W. You can check that out if you want to get into more details, more examples, etc. And there is in the Windows registry an entry telling you which directories to kind of let's say shadow copy and which directories to exclude, etc. And if it's enabled or disabled as well. Completely snapshot of, no, it's not a complete snapshot of the system. It's what I would kind of probably say, it's a differential backup of your data. So what differential backup means is kind of you have some data, you did some changes, those changes are now kind of backed up. So that's what it really does. And it uses the copy on write, which is cow, in other words. So yeah, it's not a complete backup. Okay, so that's probably, if I bring maybe back my slides back here, by the way. Again, if you want to practice this, it's completely online. You can do that. If you want to take the course is on our website as well. I would check our academy. There's a course on volume shadow copies. If you want to do that, it has more probably content than just a single case. But that brings us to the end for this webinar. Our plan again is to do one every month and to kind of have these ShadowMe's talk about maybe a tool, a case, something that you may send us, by the way, and say, can you present and talk about this? We will be doing that. So thank you for your time and for attending today. And also thank you, Mariam, for being here with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing you in future webinars. Have a good one.
I'm
شو؟
نعمل بريك روم نروح على لبن ما يطلع كلهم.
نعمل بريك روم؟
او خلص خليهم يطلعوا. احنا ميوتد صح؟
ايه.
مين ضياء العمري؟